actually.
Hi, my name is Vaddi, and I'm from Lambert High School. And my company is Darden Industries, or Darden Restaurants. So, first off, let's start with the business description. So, Darden Restaurants is in the restaurant industry, which is more commonly part of the consumer discretionary sector. And so, Darden Restaurants holds many different companies and many different restaurant chains, including Olive Garden and Longhorn Steakhouse, which is their two most prominent holdings. Another thing to mention is that they're a large cap company and they have over 1,687 restaurants in the US and Canada. Let's look at the industry overview. So the restaurant industry is a prominent market that is a major source of the employment in the US. And one thing to mention is that COVID hit really hard with the restaurant industry. Over 110,000 different businesses associated with the restaurant industry actually went out of business. And this has led to increased prices in this sector, increased costs of goods and raw resources, increased inflation, labor costs hit a 20-year high, supply chain issues also caused a huge problem, and there was this also online fervor that kind of popped up with Uber Eats and Postmates, and everyone wanted to eat online. No one wanted to go to these brick and mortar companies. However, Darden Industries was actually was resilient, unlike many of the other companies, and they actually fought, and they are actually at the top of the restaurant industry in my eyes. So the buzz surrounding this online market started to die down a little bit, and people started to go back toward these brick and mortar institutions and brick and mortar restaurants, and Darden restaurants actually grew a lot and exponentially because of this. And the restaurant industry alone in the U.S. is worth about $731.5 billion, and they're expected to grow to about $997 billion by the end of 2023 because of increasing rise of people going to these restaurants and because of higher menu prices, as well as the cutting down of costs and supply chain issues. And here we can see some graphs. So you can see that the U.S. food delivery app revenue, we can see that the revenue of companies such as Uber Eats and other companies has grown exponentially. And they've grown from only about $8 billion to about $27 billion in the span of 5 years. And you can see it 2020, it's at the highest, mainly because of COVID. And we can see the restaurant industry collapse in major U.S. cities. We can see that cities such as Chicago and Los Angeles, the restaurant industry completely collapsed, going from a positive net gain to negative 100%, which is astonishing. Now let's look at the financial analysis / evaluation. So Darden Restaurants has a net flat cash flow statement of $1.26 billion, and they also have an operating cash flow of 5.95%, which is pretty good. They also have a revenue growth of 34%, which is really high. And some people might say it's because they dig themselves into a ditch and they got out of it, and that's why it looks so high. But in reality, 34%, they only went down about 10% because of COVID. And 34% increase is actually extremely high, especially for a company in the restaurant industry. This is mainly because of them cutting down costs and selling corporate bonds and selling common stock, amongst other practices. And this also led to their net financing cash flow statement to be in the negatives during COVID time. But they rebounded greatly, going to $1.89 billion in their net financing cash flow statement. And here's a typo, it should be $478.9 million. And here we can see a graph of the revenue. We can see how it had a year 2015, it grew a lot, and it was steady growing, and then because of COVID, it went down a lot. And now it's higher than ever at almost $952.8 million. And this is net income, by the way. Now let's look at the SWOT analysis, which is the strengths, threats, weaknesses, and opportunities. So let's start with the strengths. Their strengths include their go-to-market strategies to get to the consumer, as well as their strong distribution markets, because this is a relatively prominent restaurant industry or restaurant company. They also have numerous holdings, meaning that even if one holding fails or doesn't do so well, their other holdings can kind of make up for that holding in revenue and other terms. Also, they have new technology which they can incorporate, such as AI robots, AI intelligence, amongst other things. They can incorporate to make their company and their user experience even better. They also have a successful rebound from COVID, which is one of the strongest, I would say, attributes of this company, and separates this company from other companies in this industry and in general. Now let's look at weaknesses. Some of their weaknesses include how they have outdated business models and all the liabilities that they got during COVID, which they are paying back now, and they are going to pay it back soon, and their liabilities are going to be off their chest, mainly because of their exponential growth in revenue and profit. Another thing to mention is their opportunities, which is in government sanctions and stimuli packages and such that the government have been giving out to the struggling restaurant industry, but not Darden Industries, because they have actually been successful during COVID. Now let's look at the online food ventures. This is another big part of opportunity. For example, they can partner with Uber Eats, which they already have, and this can exponentially increase sales, and it can also open new avenues for cash, as well as open new avenues for target markets. Another thing to mention is gaps in markets that can be filled. Some companies actually left their niche because of bankruptcy, and so other companies such as Darden Industries can take them over and take over that niche. Lastly, the threats. It's a volatile industry, like I mentioned before, and you never know what's going to happen. There's also currency fluctuations, especially on the international scale, with countries such as Venezuela who don't have stable currencies. Also, inflation and rising raw material costs have also caused everything to be scaled higher in terms of price, causing a lot of different backlash, and also supply chain issues, like I mentioned before. Now let's look at the stock analysis. So with the stock analysis, there's three. I missed a slide. The ESG considerations. So there's three main different ways that Darden Industries is actually going about reducing their energy consumption, and this includes tracking water and energy consumption, building restaurants to LEED principles. LEED is a organization that monitors businesses and how they use energy amongst other resources, and create efficiency in their restaurants. The first method is tracking their water and energy consumption, and they can do this simply by different management plans and energy management systems. And they can also remove unnecessary uses of energy, such as LEDs when no one's using them. They can also use exterior light pollution reductions, low emitting materials, using LED lighting to conserve energy, and daylight harvesting, meaning they use daylight instead of actually using artificial light to conserve energy during the day. Another thing I mentioned is creating efficiency in restaurants, such as not using technology when it's not needed, not using equipment when it's not needed, only using them when it's absolutely necessary, as well as installing energy management systems, like I mentioned before. And also, they also use effective lighting in their actual building, in their headquarters, which can be depicted here. They use heat-efficient lighting, which have cut down the energy consumption by 16% in that building. And they do this by using lights that turn on, off, and they turn on and off by specific current. For example, they might turn on a little bit higher, off a little bit higher, depending on the surroundings and the environment. They also have solar panels, as you can see here, lined up all around, all above the building to generate electricity, and that also helps curb the heat island effect with their roofing system. You can also see here how they also decreased substantially from 2019 to 2020, especially in 2021, to cut down those costs. Especially here in 2020, 2021, they cut down costs because of COVID, and they really needed to save more money and have a positive cash flow coming in. Now let's look at the stock analysis. So the EP ratio is about 7.5% each year, and they're very resilient in the market, like I mentioned before. Another thing I mentioned is that this company might be undervalued in the market, and they also have stable growth in operating margins, and dividends per share have been more doubled in 2013 and have increased from $2 to $4.4. The dividend yield is also 3.5%. They have a good ROI, which increased from about 3% to 14%. And during COVID, it was actually in the negatives. And they're showing that investors are actually making money off of it. And you can see that there was a decrease in revenue here substantially. However, in the long term, they're increasing more substantially than other companies, which shows that they are more resilient than the other companies. And most restaurants don't actually rise significantly after COVID, but they did. And they also have an above average PE ratio and decreasing operating costs. And they're operating in the cash flow statement, they're actually positive in almost all four of the cash flow statements. Now, my recommendation is that the target price is $171.60, 11.5% increase. The current stock price is $153.89, and I think that they should buy. You should buy this stock because of its resilience in the market and because it's simply worth it. It has the necessary qualities for investment, shows positive outlook, and has been acquiring new acquisitions and expanding to a new outline platform. Therefore, Darden Restaurants is one of the most safest and reliable companies to invest in the restaurant industry. Thank you.